Fighters are the thoroughbreds of the aeroplane world. Theirs is a demanding task to seek out and destroy the aircraft of the enemy. So they're designed to fly at the very limits of what's possible, extracting the last ounce of performance from airframe and engine. The same demands are made of the men who fly them. That's why fighter pilots are an elite among aviators.
Fighter pilot is an attitude. It is cockiness, it is aggressiveness, it is self-confidence, it is a streak of rebelliousness, and it is competitiveness. There's something else. There's a spark, there's a desire to be good, to do well in the eyes of your peers and in your own eyes. I think it is love of that blue vault of sky that becomes your playground, if and only if you're a fighter pilot. You don't understand it if you're flying from A to B in straight and level and merely climb and descend. You're moving through the basement of that vault of blue. A fighter pilot is a man in love with flying. A fighter pilot sees not a cloud, but beauty. Not the ground, but something remote from him. Something that he doesn't belong to as long as he's airborne. He's a man who wants to be second best to no one.
The United States F-16 is regarded as one of the best fighters in the world today. It's fast, highly maneuverable, and deadly. The essential qualities of every successful fighter plane. In World War II, there were few fighters more successful than the P-51, the Mustang. Introduced in 1943, it was the long-range fighter with the job of escorting Allied bombers over Germany. Unlike earlier fighters, such as the Spitfire, it had the range to fly deep into the Reich. Once there, it had the performance to beat or match every German aircraft sent up against it. More than any other fighter, the Mustang destroyed the Luftwaffe.
All of a sudden, this new airplane appeared on the scene, the P-51. We knew nothing of maneuverability, how far it would go. We discovered it was quite a remarkable machine. It was the same engine as the Spitfire. You knew you had more power than you'd ever had before. You could feel the acceleration on takeoff. Of course, you were kind of pushing back in your seats like when you take off in a jet. This is the exhilarating feeling. You feel like that now you've got something you can do great things with.
Beautiful little airplane. Fell in love with that immediately. Its ability is legend. Its range, adequate firepower, comfort, durability, reliability, everything about it was something that a fighter pilot dreamed of, and there it was. So to this day, my heart really is in that P-51 cockpit.
We felt more secure in the Mustang than any other airplane. We felt we really had something that we could fight the German on an equal basis. This is very important, to have the confidence. You could go and go and go. You could stay up 8 hours. The bombers would take off at 6 o'clock in the morning. We'd take off at 8, and we'd meet them at noon somewhere, some point over Germany. All that time, the Germans could be having breakfast, playing tennis, and doing most anything they wanted to do until we got to the point where they were supposed to intercept us. The bomber boys used to brag about, oh, we can go in by ourselves. They were bomber boys. They wanted to prove that they could do it. Well, of course, they couldn't. They took terrible losses.
When we started escorting the bombers in P-51s, we flew very close to the bombers. I think that was for their morale purposes, and nobody had really thought out the situation to a logical conclusion. It just seemed the thing to do, to fly alongside, maybe a mile away, and fight the oncoming Luftwaffe. Well, that was a dumb thing to do when you get right down to it, because you can't defend against a determined attack by the enemy. But then, stupid people start wars, and stupid people run wars, and very seldom listen to the people who are fighting the wars. It was a raid to Berlin, beautiful, beautiful day. The B-17 box that we were escorting was at 32,000 feet. How those men stood at those open windows, I'll never know, but there they were. Suddenly, that box of bombers were hit by waves of Focke-Wulf 190. It was carnage. They knocked down 52 of them in about 3 minutes. And we were sandwiched, 1 or 2 of us, in between these attacking waves. And of course, we didn't stop them. You can't stop a determined attack, well planned and executed. The best way to defend the bombers is to catch the enemy before he's in position to attack. Catch them when they're taking off, or when they're climbing, or when they're forming up. Don't think you can defend a bomber by circling around him. It's good for the bomber's morale and bad for tactics.
Take 1,000 bombers, a bomber stream of 1,000. That's a lot of land up in the air to try to cover. And they're going to get in there somewhere or another and got a few of those. So we couldn't cover them all the time, but we did a pretty good job. Without the Mustang, it would have been pretty bad.
Throughout the war, fighter pilots were glamorous figures, standing out as individuals in striking contrast to the anonymous scale of modern warfare. They captured the public imagination. They seemed like the knights of old, jousting in the sky. Most nations had their aces, pilots with a flair for shooting down the enemy.
Yes, I got a Messerschmitt 109 in the door. How'd you get on, sir? 109, Mr.
Scores of German aces had over 100 victories to their credit.
Wir fuhren dann von vorne an. Ich hatte gerade den rechts außen fliegenden Turm wieder aus ca. 200 Meter Entfernung sofort.
Air forces were quick to exploit their achievements, turning them into heroes to raise morale at home.
There's one ingredient that I think you can always spot in an ace. He's usually a very light-hearted type of fellow. He likes a lot of fun. Good drinker, usually. Chaser. He takes things very lightly, but there's something else that you don't see. And his dedication.